The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
It's time to get it straight. No chaser with Jasmyne Cannick.
Overall, it's just a good thing.
Tap into the conversation. Check 1, 2. As Jasmyne covers the latest issues affecting our community and the world.
It is absolutely vital that the truth comes out.
This is Straight No Chaser with Jasmyne Cannick.
Let's go, man.
Bills before its midnight deadline. So let's take a look at what passed. AB 1196. This bill bans police officers from using chokeholds or carotid holds. AB 1506. This requires the state attorney general and not a local DA to investigate every time police kill an unarmed civilian. SB 480. This bans law enforcement officers from wearing camouflage or military-like uniforms. SB 629. This allows journalists to go behind police lines during protests. It also prohibits police officers from obstructing or assaulting a member of the press.
Bills failed just by the clock running out last night. Now, one of them would have created a mechanism by which officers who had been convicted of some type of violation would be decertified within the state of California. California, one of only 5 states in the nation without such a process, and that is not going to change anytime soon.
Of all the reforms, this is the one that would have caused, I think, started a major culture change within policing in California.
Former police auditor and retired Judge Ladoris Cordell says the failure of SB 731 is not unexpected. Despite a wave of protest in the streets and an online campaign backed with some celebrity power, the reform bill was stopped by traditional resistance.
The decertification, there was tremendous pushback from the police unions.
It's a process. Now, what I would say is that this should not be the end of it.
Retired Oakland Police Chief Howard Jordan says unions oppose the bill, but do support decertification in some form, and he expects that will happen.
They should take some more time, do some more analysis, meet with the parties. There's a lot of good ideas. I don't think there's any police chief that I know of, current or past, who want a troubled officer on their team.
It's a gargantuan task, and it's disappointing in light of all what we've seen in this country, not only over the last 3 to 4 months, but
that was State Senator Stephen Bradford, disappointed when his bill was just hanging in the balance last week. It never got a vote last night.
This is a setback. It's a serious setback, but it can be overcome.
Great. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this special edition of my podcast, Straight No Chaser, and my combo series. I say special because I had no intention on doing a show today. But by popular demand, I am going to address, what we just saw in the video. So, as you know, this is my combo series. Candid, frank conversations with me, Jasmyne Cannick, your host. And I always give it to you from an unapologetically Black Gen X point of view. The Black in the Gen X is extremely important. Remember that. So, as you guys know, for people who watch this on a regular basis, I always tell you that the court of public opinion is open. I brought my gavel this week. It is open. I know people are already calling, but let us get into the conversation a little bit. If you want to tap into the conversation, you can call 323-815-4204, 323-815-4204. As always, you can also leave your comments in the comment section of the Facebook Live, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. So let's get started. The police killing of George Floyd in Minnesota in late May reignited a nationwide protest movement that saw thousands fill the streets in cities across the country demanding police reform. Floyd's death, along with the fatal police shooting of Breonna Taylor and the resulting protests, helped to tip the scales of justice in favor of the activists who have been calling for police reform for I don't know how many years. This has also caused many elected officials who were either opposed or just silent on the whole issue of Black Lives Matter to jump on the bandwagon. Not all of them. Some were already there, but a lot of them weren't. And now, because of y'all, they are there. Lawmakers in New York, Minnesota, and right here in California were poised to make many changes. New York City and Los Angeles announced that they would be reducing their police budgets, something, again, that the activists had been asking for years. The use of police chokeholds was banned in several states. The House of Representatives, Congress, passed a sweeping police reform bill. The most substantial move was taken in Minneapolis, where the city council voted to disband the police department entirely. There have been lots of press conferences and lots of big announcements, y'all, but what has really been done? New York lawmakers have been accused of using funny math, and they are not the only ones who have been accused of that, to hide the fact that they really weren't taking away money from the police budget. The House bill died in the Republican-led Senate. Minneapolis's plan to dismantle its police force has gotten bogged down in bureaucratic red tape. Again, great big announcements, but you gotta follow things all the way through to see actually what happens. In California, the Legislative Black Caucus, I'm going to pull over the car for a minute. The Legislative Black Caucus is comprised of all of the African-American members of the state legislature being the Assembly and the Senate combined. Now we're going to get back on the road. The Legislative Black Caucus, which is comprised of Black members of the Assembly and Senate, offered a hasty justice bills package this year that included banning the cartoid chokehold, mandating independent investigations for police deadly force, sheriff oversight, parole reintegration, mandating that officers report and intervene when they know or have a reason to know that another officer is about to use or is using unnecessary force. But on Monday, a bill that would have allowed bad officers to be permanently stripped of their badges failed to pass the California legislature when state lawmakers, who are mostly Democratic, could not muster enough support to pass one of the year's top policing reform bills. The measure would have created a way to decertify officers found to have committed serious misconduct, something that we need. For weeks prior to Monday, these police reform bills were points of contention, even for Democratic lawmakers who were publicly sympathetic to the cause, but privately were under the pressure of intense lobbying from police unions, proving that the police union still has a serious influence on the legislature. Lawmakers also failed to pass a bill that would have made public disciplinary records against police officers accused of racist or discriminatory actions, or those who have a history of wrongful arrest or searches, among others. That bill passed the Assembly, but the state Senate did not vote on it before the deadline at midnight on Monday. The Senate was delayed by more than an hour. So I want you guys to understand why we're doing this show, because a lot of people, especially some of these new woke activists, are just now figuring out that Sacramento is the capital for the state of California, and that we actually have lawmakers in two houses up there called the Assembly and the Senate. And so, as you know, I love to educate people. I spent about, I would say maybe it was 8 years working for Mervyn Dimely. Mm-hmm. So I can speak to you with some experience having worked in the state legislature. And this is where you get state laws. You have city laws, county laws, and then you have state laws and federal laws. Today we're talking about the state laws. The Senate was delayed by more than an hour over a procedural fight between Democrats who control the chamber and Republicans, most of whom were forced to vote remotely after one of the Republicans tested positive for the coronavirus and possibly exposed his colleagues. SB 731's failure set off a storm of controversy with finger pointing all around. To help me and others understand what happened, I'm happy to welcome someone I know very well, but am not going to go easy on. We're going to have a real conversation. My friend and my brother, who I've known since before he was an assembly member, when he was a Carson City Council member. Our relationship goes way back, including my relationship with his wife and his children. I want to make that clear. I want to welcome 64th Assembly Member Mike Gipson for this week's conversation. And I want to preface my welcome with this. This is not a show to talk about his reelection campaign. So all of y'all who are calling in talking about vote for Fatima, this ain't that show. Fatima's not an elected official, so she wasn't in Sacramento for Monday's catastrophe. And I wanted to talk to somebody who was up there, who was in the middle of all of it. So if you're on the line holding to tell me not to vote for Mike and to vote for Fatima, save your breath, because that's not what this call is about. If I decide to do a show about the election in the 64th Assembly District, I'll let you know and make sure Fatima comes on the show. Okay? All right. As always, if you have questions or comments, tap into the comments below the video or call 323-815-4204, 323-815-4204. I will try to get to as many calls as I can. Y'all started calling before I even said hello on the damn air. Y'all already on the phone. So I know people feel really strongly about the failure of these police reform bills, but let me welcome Mike. Mike, Assemblymember Gipson, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming. I forgot to do something. Oh, you like my cup? You like my new cup? Yeah. You guys see my cup? Yes. I have a new coffee cup. Every week I'm going to display a new cup. This one says Jackie Lacey must go because she must go. But yes, I'm happy you're here. Lots of drama. I saw some of the fallout on social media. Read the LA Times, read the Sacramento Bee, read a lot of different news outlets. Different folks had different opinions on why what happened, sure, as I have my own. But let us first start with the most controversial issue, which was 731 failing. Okay. So in your opinion, why did SB 731 fail?
Well, first of all, Jasmine, let me say thank you very much for allowing me to be on the show. I know that you wasn't scheduled, and I appreciate you bringing me on to have a real in-depth conversation. And certainly, I'm willing to do just that. 731, it was part of the Legislative Black Caucus Justice Package. We all voted unanimously for that bill, along with other bills that I co-authored and sponsored, including my bill banning chokeholds and carotid artery restraints. So I want to put that out there.
We're going to get to that bill, too.
Right. And so what happened on that evening is that the Republicans, because they decided to have a party and not wear masks, and one member of the Senate Republican Party tested positive for COVID. Mm-hmm. So the pro tem didn't allow any of the Republicans to come into the Capitol with the fear of potentially exposing the Senate members. So they all had to vote remotely and come into the conversation remotely. As a result of that, one of the minority Republic leader, the Senate Republican leader, decided to pull off all the bills from the consent calendar.
Hold on.
Because
we have some people who don't even know what a minority leader is, and they don't even understand what a consent calendar is.
Gotcha.
So you want to do that, or you want me? You do it.
So I'll do it. A consent calendar are bills that both the Democrats and Republicans agree on, and we vote on it in one motion. And those can be a number of different bills. It could be 100 bills, mm-hmm. right? And so the minority Senate leader, which is Shannon Grove, she got upset because of the way things were going in terms of the voting and also limiting conversation. There was a motion that was made to limit debate to 2 minutes each instead of filibustering, because that's what happened before. Republicans started filibustering to try to milk the time down. And so they were upset. She made a motion to remove all the items from the consent calendar, which means that we have to go the Senate has to go one by one and take up those bills instead of taking one motion that we all agreed upon as Democrats in the Senate and vote for and dispense of. And those bills could have came to us in the Assembly where we were waiting. So because of that action, it delayed things that we were doing in the State Assembly. And so 731, along with other 14 bills in the State Senate and 9 bills in the State Assembly didn't get voted on because of the tremendous delay. And so we had a constitutional deadline of midnight to either pass those bills or do nothing with those bills. And so we were scrambling. We had to even put people's microphones down when there was a controversial bill that was being spoken of. And, the minority leader put people's microphones down because some people want to just talk, okay, just as simple as that. Mm-hmm. And so we had all these bills, 9 bills, including 731, that was waiting to be voted on, right? And the bill just couldn't get heard. Midnight came upon us, and that stopped that business.
So, one, this is not the first time that's happened.
Right.
For folks who are familiar with the legislature, the clock runs out a lot of times on a number of bills. I think there's more attention being paid right now because of what the bill would have done, right?
And the bill was a good bill. Let me also say this, that as lawmakers, if, for instance, you want me to vote on a bill, I'm going to listen to the floor because I believe the people want you to not make a hasty decision. You're going to hear debate. And this was a very big bill that would have invoked debate on the floor. And so I wanted to hear the debate. But again, it's part of the Legislative Black Caucus. I'm going to be there, but I'm not letting people know that I'm there because I don't do that. I've never done that. And so when people were calling my office, asking me to support the bill, and I want to thank everyone for respecting the office.
Because those are the people you should be listening to. Forget the debate on the floor. The people who matter the most. When I'm your assembly member, and I don't know in what district that will be, I will listen to the people I represent. I wouldn't really care about my colleagues in terms of their debate because it's the people in the 64th, right? If the people in the 64th want you to support it, you go support it, right?
Right, but we don't know who these people are. We have people calling from other states.
Okay.
Who don't know anything about the 64th, who know nothing about California. So therefore, when those calls came in order for me to be able to focus on what's going on the floor, I did what I've never done before, sent out a tweet saying I'm supporting 731. That was 4 hours before midnight, okay? And then the time just completely ran out. So it was, I don't think it was anyone's doing. No one methodically tried to stop that bill. Again, the Legislative Black Caucus had been leading the way in terms of real police officer reform in the state of California. We have heard the voices. When I saw George Floyd was murdered and executed by a police officer, I stood up and said, I'm going to carry the bill to ban those practices. The city of Los Angeles banned this practice when we had a racist police chief by the name of Chief Daryl Gates who said when police officers put black people in chokeholds that our necks are just too thin. That's what he said. The Los Angeles City Council voted to never use that practice again. And 20 plus years, the Los Angeles Police Department was not using chokeholds. But there's other cities and other departments in California that not only use chokeholds, but also carotid restraints. And that was the method that was used with George Floyd, which is a carotid restraint, where it blocks the flow of blood to the brain that cause unconsciousness and then lead to death. We don't want to ban that because over 27%, those methods being used have been used on African Americans. 26% were brown people. That makes up 53% that law enforcement were using those kinds of methods directly and methodically for us. And so I stepped up to the plate and said, I'm going to ban that particular practice. In addition to that, the ACLU asked me to also carry the decertification.
We're going to get to all of that.
Okay.
But let's stay on 7th. I'm so glad
that's
know.
That's 731 is decertification.
Well, yeah, you're right. It is. But hold on. I want to say this. I'm happy to see the Legislative Black Caucus is actually taking up the issues that Black people, those of us who are left here in the state of California, can afford to live here, care about. Because there are very few of us left here in the state. As you know, we're being priced out and moved out of the state. Because for a long time, you know, the Legislative Black Caucus took up bills that I wouldn't say necessarily invoked the kind of interest and passion that these criminal justice reform bills have. And it's good because I think out of the entire remember, in the legislature, you have all kinds of different, you have the LGBT caucus, you have the Legislative Black Caucus, you have the Latino Legislative Caucus, you
Jewish.
have the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus, you have the Women's Caucus, you have all these different caucuses, right? So out of all of them, yes, the Black Caucus is the one that should be, I would think, leading the way on these bills. And I just want to say I'm happy to see that happened. I think if I recall correctly, many of this whole justice bill package came together in June, correct? It was like June or May or
something. I don't know. Yeah,
it was quite recently. So hopefully, you know.
But let me also say this, that we have been working on reform long before even George Floyd's murder took place. People just hadn't heard about it. And so what
Wait. Well, whose fault is that? If we haven't heard of it.
Well, I'm assuming they haven't heard from. We've been working towards.
Y'all got to do a better job of telling us what's going on in Sacramento.
Okay. The Legislative Black Caucus, we are also put on the table reparation. The Black Caucus has done that. We're also repealing.
Who else would do it?
Okay. No, but I don't want you to think that we have not been actively doing things to advance the voices of African Americans in California.
Look, Mr. Dimely was the chair of the Black Caucus until that position was stolen from him.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember that.
I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
I heard about it, though.
Okay. And so I have a lot of respect for the Black Caucus. I'm actually happy when it has more than 2 members. So, no, I'm not saying that you guys aren't doing anything at all. What I'm saying is that I think this is the first time that you guys are doing something that has caught the interest of people who don't normally pay attention to what's going on in Sacramento. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Like, that's why I said in the beginning, like, people who are just realizing that Sacramento is the state capital, you know?
Right.
And so, I mean, that's a good thing. And we have to figure out how to harness that interest and that enthusiasm and that passion. Take it with us into November, but also take it with us into the next session, right?
Absolutely.
Because this is a never-ending process. You know, people don't understand. There is a set calendar for the state legislature.
Can I make a mention of this?
You can say whatever you want.
So because of the set calendar, right, and because we're hoping that the governor calls us back to a special extraordinary session,
ask you about that.
Then we can pick up. I'm told that we'll be able to pick up where we left off, as well as deal with very specifically what he's asking us to come back for. And if he comes back, if he asks us to come back or orders to come back, I'm sure it'd be COVID-related issues. But in addition to that, we're hoping that we can also deal with what we weren't able to get across the desk and voted on onto his desk before 2021. And I'm a firm believer that 731 will be part of that. Understand, we're going to get to this too, but I'm going to say it right now. Me, as a black man first, and I want to be real clear, and as a father who cares deeply about who I am and the community. Remember, Jasmine, my son was just shot on April the 1st this year, him and his fiance just walking down the street, and was a victim of gun violence, right? So I lead my colleagues in terms of gun reforms, restricting use from guns falling into the hands of criminals. So I've done that long before he was even shot. I've done that, closed down streets, and we've done a whole bunch of different rallies. We took money away from the NRA, so state employees through their retirement will no longer invest money into that racist organization called the National Rifle Association. So I am motivated to support this bill, to bring this bill back, and for somehow, it is landed on my feet in terms of responsibility.
Yes, I want to know.
Sure.
I'm curious, really, I want to know why, Oh, we're going to get to that, Brianna. You know what we're going to talk about that. I just want to know why people are blaming you, because if you followed the proceedings, then it was really clear what was going on just in terms of the Republicans who, they're salty. They've been salty for a long time up there because there are so few of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are outnumbered in both chambers. Okay. Okay. So, their votes don't even count because they can be voted down. Like the majority is with the Democrats up there, but they can do stuff like this, which is run the clock out and, filibuster and do those kinds of things to prevent bills from making it to the governor's desk. They don't have the votes to stop it, but they certainly can mess with the procedures. And I'm just curious, so how's that your fault? Because I really want to know. This is not a I love Mike Gipson fest, although I do. But I think we have the kind of relationship where if you're wrong, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. Right. And if I'm wrong, you're going to tell me I'm wrong. Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. So I'm just trying to figure out why it's your fault. Well,
this is a political year and some people don't understand and want to take...
We're going to talk about that for half a second.
Every opportunity to do that. But they don't understand the legislative process. They don't understand that we're bound by a constitutional time. And the Constitution says that we have to finish all business by midnight before September the 1st takes place. So we were battling on August the 31st to try to get these bills out, and the clock actually ran out. My responsibility is not the floor. My responsibility is to vote and hear the debate and raise my microphone up and speak on bills and things of that nature. I am not the whip. Okay, so I want to be really, really clear that, if we want to blame someone, blame those who decided to do what their daddy told them to do, and that is believe the myth that this coronavirus doesn't exist and you guys can gather in a small place and don't do social distancing and don't wear masks. And that's the reason why one of the individuals was tested positive, and that caused a domino effect in the Senate that led over to the Assembly.
And it couldn't have happened at a worse time, right?
Right, but we are motivated to bring 731 back.
So, back on, so even in my comment section, folks are talking about, so you used to be a police officer at one time. You were a police officer. That's not secret, okay? Obviously, he's not a police officer anymore. He's a member of the state legislature, but you've also taken money from police unions, as have most of the Democrats and Republicans in Sacramento. And I say that because I try to be fair when I talk about these Democrats and Republicans. I'm an elected member of the County Central Committee here. I am a Democrat. I got one foot in the party, one foot out. Y'all know that. So there's no love lost for me with the Democratic Party. I stick around simply because I believe since they get the majority of my people's votes, somebody's got to be there to hold them accountable and fight. Even if, even if I don't win those fights, I just want to make sure that someone is holding them accountable. But the reality is for all of y'all, including you, Brianna, is that when you look at, it's hard because a lot of these people are just waking up and they're just learning about this stuff. If you go back and you look at lobbying and you look at the money coming from police unions, it goes into both parties, okay? Right. A lot of Democrats take police union money. A lot of Republicans take police union money, right? And up until this year, it was never an issue. Right? It was never. Now, it was an issue for some of us that knew what was going on and felt, rightly so or not, that money influenced people. We knew that was going on, but it was never an issue to the point where it is now, where people, elected and candidates, are actually being called out. Mm-hmm. Okay? So, for example, in the DA's race here in LA County, Jackie Lacey has pretty much been funded by all the police unions. Even police unions not even in LA County. Mm-hmm. Her opponent has pledged not to take money from police unions. Okay? I've seen other races where candidates are being challenged and asked not to take money from police unions. And so that, I believe, Mike, is going to be an issue for electeds and candidates going forward. I think that you guys are going to have to figure out, I guess, where you want to be in this.
So if I can interrupt.
You can say whatever you want, whenever you want.
So thank you very much. So based on what you just said, should elected officials stop taking money for organized labor? Should we stop taking money from Planned Parenthood? Should we stop taking money from McDonald's? Money doesn't, first of all, damn it, money doesn't buy me. If it did, I wouldn't have authored 1196. If it did, I wouldn't have supported unanimously with the Legislative Black Caucus to support this justice packet. If it did buy me, money doesn't create the atmosphere that it controls individuals. I'm talking all about me, Mike Gipson.
Right,
if that was in fact true.
Yes.
And I also want to simply say this. I haven't been a police officer almost 30 years. Let's be real. I cannot change my past. No more can I change me being a black man.
You haven't been a police officer in almost 30 years, or you were a police officer for 30 years?
No, I haven't been a police officer since about 30 years ago.
Okay, that's what I thought you said, but you said it so fast, so I wanted to make sure, because I didn't know you was in the department for 30 years.
No, not at all. Not at all. That'll make me real old. But anyway, I can't change my past. Let me tell you something. The reason why I became a police officer is because I was tired of bad people hurting good people. The reason why I became a police officer, because I was tired of making sure that bad police officers did not abuse good people. And I have so many people who are in uniform right now. That's the reason why they got into uniform, to making sure that they're there to stop these kinds of things from happening. I don't want to see another brother like George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or anybody else being killed by the hands of police officers. I am focused on making sure that we rid the department that I was once part of from bad apples. There are more good.
No, I'm gonna let you finish. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I hear and I feel the passion, but because my memory is not that great, so I got to get my points out too before I forget.
No,
all right.
Okay.
So the optics aren't good. Mm-hmm. Okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Right, that you can take money and not be influenced by the person who gave you money, but they don't give you money because they like you. They're trying to influence you, whether they succeed or not. But the point in giving money is because they're trying to influence you. You ask the question, should you stop taking money? Should folks stop taking money from Planned Parenthood and organized labor? As far as I'm concerned, all of that money needs to be taken out of politics. Every last dime of it.
So then what happens then? Let me tell you what happens then. Okay? Then you have really good grassroots candidates who can't get elected because most people who are like the Republicans, most of them are rich. They can self-fund. And so do we want to have a legislature or elected body or even a municipality of rich people who don't understand the plight of poor people in our community?
All of y'all up there, as far as I'm concerned, are rich.
Oh,
okay?
Oh, my God.
All of y'all make a lot more money than your constituents do.
I wish, no. Well, you work for Mervyn Diamond.
Yes.
And you know when session ends, check stops. Okay? So, and as you know that the legislature, yes, it's a full-time paid position, but again, money stops when we out of the legislature.
Yes, but you budget correctly, you be all right. And a lot of y'all are married and you got a spouse that works, so But my point is this.
Okay.
All that money needs to be taken, as far as I'm concerned, I believe the money needs to go. I like to see a level playing ground for candidates. We do not have that in politics. It is not a level playing ground for anyone trying to get into city council, any of these races, even in Sacramento. But as I've said before, and I'm going to say again, only the police unions use their money and their influence to keep their members out of jail and from being arrested, being charged with crimes.
So I want to tell you what the police, what happened to me just last week. Well, an organization that's connected and influenced by the police union took out a full-page ad in the Los Angeles Times, which cost $50,000, saying, Mike Gipson, You swore to serve and protect your community, but you have turned your back on your community. Your sworn oath of office. They targeted me because of 1196.
Okay. So, as a political strategist, of which I am, I do many things in this world. I can tell you this. If they really want to influence the people in the 64th with that message, you know where they would have put that ad?
Oh, no.
In the LA Sentinel. Mm-hmm. But they put it in the LA Times because they wanted white people to read it.
Right.
Not if they were smart and they wanted to, like I said, influence Compton, Carson.
Sure.
You know, that's where they would have put, or they would have ran it on KJLH or something.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a waste of $50,000. But hey, that's just my.
But opinion. I just want to paint to you. I just want to describe to Brianna and others the illustration that, you know, I am doing what people in my community has asked for. You know, my phone wasn't blowing up to do Mike author a bill to ban carotid artery restraints or chokeholds. No, I saw it and I said, you know what? We need to ban this law in the state of California. And then my buddy Kevin McCarthy banned or independent investigations from police officers in deadly shootings. I was a co-author of that bill. Sheriff oversight, giving sheriff oversights the authority to have subpoena powers. We talked about this before, that you can put a oversight together, but they don't have any real power. But now 1185, that's on the governor's desk right now to be signed, and we believe that the governor will sign, it will give subpoena powers to those oversight committees, especially when they hear situations and circumstances that warrant such a measure being done. We've done also duty to interfere, which Chris Holden's bill out of Pasadena, his bill didn't get out of appropriation. And what his bill would have done is simply says, if you see one of your coworkers who's abusing someone, you have to step in and stop it.
And you know what a damn shame it is that you need a bill to make that law, right?
Well, we have to because they won't understand policies.
I understand. I get it because it was a situation right here with the LAPD beating the shit out of a Latino guy in Boyle Heights, and the partner was standing there like she was stuck on stupid.
I saw it.
Okay, so I get why we have to mandate it so it becomes law. But it is a damn shame that we have to even do that, right? Like, you would think, but nah. Like, it has to be a law. It has to be. So look, what is the possibility that Newsom's going to call y'all back for a special session?
There is a lot of pressure on the governor to do that.
What kind of pressure?
Public opinions of pressure, because everybody feels, the majority of Californians, and I'm saying the majority, I have no poll to quantify this, feels that there is still work for us to be done. And of course, 23 bills is work for us to do that was left undone, as well as the coronavirus. The coronavirus has taken people in my life and my family. I've lost 2 family members due to COVID-19. And there is still work for us to do in this space. I got brothers and sisters who are beating down the doors, who's living from one paycheck to paycheck, where we have the EDD who is derelict in their responsibilities, who are not getting the checks to the hands of the people who legitimately need that money and should be owed that money, are not giving that money. And we need to bring them to bear. We need to call them on the carpet, and we need to change the leadership in that department so that we can get someone in there that can do the job. I have over probably 1,000 calls that my team are filtering out on a daily basis, just trying to get people their checks on time.
Only 1,000?
Well, I'll just use that.
Because people, that is a hot mess.
It is a hot mess.
I sometimes field calls around that. They come to the wrong level of government at times.
Sure.
You know, the city is not EDD. That's the state. You can call your assembly member or your senator. And so we, field the calls out to, and it's massive. And there are just people that I know personally who have been affected by this. But, the governor, I think, has a responsibility to call you guys back. I think there are a couple of things I want to address. I see a couple of things. So, Jorge, I'm not being condescending with activists. Okay, it's a reality. There are a lot of new activists who do not know anything about politics. They just simply don't know anything. They don't know about Sacramento. They don't know about the different levels of government. They don't know who's responsible for what. Okay, so it has to be explained, or else we're sitting here having a conversation and people don't even know what the hell we're talking about. But it's not in a condescending tone. I'm happy that they are waking up and realizing this is how you get things done. This is what a bill is. This is how you get a bill passed. I'm happy about that. I think I said in the beginning of this conversation, I hope we can take that into November. We need to harness all that wokeness and take it with us into November to get that man out of the White House and that woman out of the DA's office. Well, at least here in LA. So it's not condescending. It's just, that's the way I talk sometimes. And I'm just trying to explain to people. And I don't want to sit here and talk to Mike about things like a consent calendar and a minority leader, without giving people the opportunity to understand what it is we're talking about, because we could really get into some real jargon here that they use in the assembly. Y'all would have no idea what we're talking about, because so Mark wants to know what your alternative. I don't even know if this is a question for Mike, but what would be the alternative to the use of the carotid restraint if you take it away from officers and then have to use deadly force when less lethal tactics fail?
Well, it's a carotid restraint.
Yeah, that's what he put. I know who Mark is. Mark is a retired
police officer.
He's retired from Long Beach Police Department.
Yeah, I figured so. Just by the question.
Yeah.
And so, Mark, the Los Angeles Police Department has been doing this, and other police departments all over the state of California has still been able to effect an arrest without using deadly force. And certainly they can use other techniques to restrain and subdue individuals without having to use what I'm calling deadly force. The carotid artery restraint, again, when you put pressure on someone's neck, stopping the blood flow to the brain that leads to unconsciousness, sometimes the adrenaline is going, with you, a police officer, you know this. The adrenaline is moving, and sometimes you don't realize how much.
Mark is a police officer. He wasn't saying that to me because I'm not a police officer.
Right. You don't know how much pressure you're putting on a person before you know that person's dead. A person can die within seconds as a result of that. So is that something? Understand, Mark, that method has been used towards African Americans and Latinos, and no one else. And I'm just simply saying that if other officers and other departments have banned this, such like the Highway Patrol hasn't done this in over 30 or 40 years. Los Angeles Police Department hasn't done sleeper holes or chokeholds in over 25 plus years. Certainly, if they're still affecting and putting bad people in jail, certainly they have used and can use other techniques at their disposal in order to an effective arrest. We don't need it because of the purpose it was intended for. It was intended for 27% African American, 26% Latinos. It's undeniable. It's undisputable.
I'm not disagreeing.
I know you're not.
I had a momentary flashback there because you said that the CHP had banned it, and all I could think about was Marlene Pinnock getting the shit beat out of her on the side of the freeway. So, they may have banned it, but they don't have it together themselves, right? They just figured out another way to hurt us and to harm us. Sure. So Sky wants to know, what is your position on prison reform and overcrowding of prisons in California? Since we're talking about prison, we're talking about police reform and criminal justice reform. Most certainly our prisons are a part of that. Right.
Well, we have a problem in our prison. I spoke to the Secretary Diaz of our prisons. He's over our prisons. He's stepping down, I think, in October or something of that nature.
Why is he leaving?
I don't know why he's leaving, but there's a female who's going to replace him. She's the undersecretary who's going to replace him, and it was appointed by Gavin Newsom. We have stopped investing money into prisons in terms of the state of California. There's a plan to close down a number of prisons. Brown did everything he could to reduce the number of people within our prison population. Right now, my focus is making sure they are testing, because our brothers and sisters who happen to be black and brown are testing positive in prison for COVID-19. And the tests,
as they are in the jails.
Yes, and the testing are not coming back in a quick enough response before that individual goes out and affects someone else. Mm-hmm. And so there's a company who is doing this stuff, results 24 hours, and you can get your results back, move that individual out of the population. So we're closing down the prisons, not all the prisons, don't want to get that illusion that all the prisons in fact being closed down. But
I would have to move.
Right. Their prisons are still going to be open, but our private prisons, we don't want those private prisons because they're making money. They're on the stock exchange. We don't want that to happen where people are going to jail just to satisfy Wall Street. Should not happen. And certainly this legislative
shouldn't have had private prisons to begin with.
Yeah, I agree.
Anywhere in this country.
I agree.
But I will tell you this, and I'll tell you this, Sky, and everybody who's watching, I am actively working on trying to send someone into one of our prisons. So hopefully you guys save room for Ed Buck, because he will be headed. I don't know if it's going to be a federal prison or a state prison, but overcrowding or not, save room for him, okay?
And thank you for your leadership in that, because he deserved it.
So I appreciate that.
He absolutely deserves it.
Again, we'll have a different conversation, y'all, about the unintended consequences of our activism and how people like Ed Buck get to benefit from the work that we're doing on the behalf of those who really, 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 really need our help. And thank you, Jorge. I'm glad we're all good, because I want to be good with you. I don't want you to be mad at me. So Minerva wants to know if the Black Legislative Caucus agrees to defunding the police as expressed by Black Lives Matter.
No bills that we have dealt with.
That's a yes or a no question.
Well, I'm just saying that there's no bills that we have right now that speaks to that right now, defunding the police department.
So where y'all at on it?
We haven't made any decisions because we were focused on our justice package, and either no member.
How can that be? How?
Because we was focused on decertification. We was focused on banning carotid artery restraints, independent investigations when police officers deadly use of force. We've been focused on sheriff's oversight. We've been focused on parole for those who are to receive credit. We've been focusing.
Hold up, that's important. They were focused on if someone is released from prison and they're on parole, if they go to college, if they get involved in the community, that would lessen their time on parole, which I think is a fantastic.
And it's on the governor's desk.
Yeah, I think I think that'll motivate a lot of people too.
Kevin McCarthy and Mike Gipson, Legislative Black Caucus.
Yeah. So let's see what else. We got questions here. I got stuff here, and I forgot to charge my iPad, so it's about to go. It's about to go out. But I think so. Before I get back to the questions that are on the Facebook Live, and before we get out of here, I do want to kind of think through with you.
Sure.
What the biggest factors are that are standing in the way of police reform, particularly in Sacramento? Because I don't see it as being the Republicans, because they simply don't have the numbers to influence anything up there.
We have 9 months from the time that we come with a concept, and a bill has to go through its legislative process. 1196, I had that number, or that bill was in the Senate. What I did was I gutted the language in it and dropped language in there to ban carotid artery restraint and amend.
That's what a gut and amend is. If you ever hear that phrase, that's what they do.
So it's a bill that I no longer needed, but I needed the number, and I dropped language in. That's how we got 1196. But a bill normally takes 9 months for it to go through committees and
you have to give birth to that bill. 9 months.
You have to work that bill for 9 months before it can even get to the governor's desk, if it gets to the governor's desk. So the Legislative Black Caucus, again, I keep harping on that because we have been moving these kinds of legislation out. Again, we're talking about reparation for black people. We're talking about repealing Proposition 209, with Proposition 16 will be on the ballot to bring back affirmative action. That helps our community because we see the injustices that are taking place when it comes down to admissions. Law school didn't even have any blacks in law school because of it.
No. And I agree with you. And I'm happy. I hope that for folks who are watching this and are going to watch this later when it's on demand, look, you should already be following your the senator that represents the area where you live in the assembly member.
Absolutely.
But in particularly, I would encourage all of you to also follow the different caucuses that are important to you. If you're a veteran, follow the Veterans Caucus. Right. If you're a woman, follow the Women's Caucus. Black folks and people who are interested in the Black Caucus, follow the Legislative Black Caucus. They're on social media. They have a newsletter. They have an email list you can sign up for, as does the Latino Legislative Caucus and the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus. Like, you need to keep, and also don't just follow them, engage with them, talk with them, let them know how you feel about things. Because one of the things that I don't think really came through, and we talked about this at the beginning with the LBC, the Legislative Black Caucus, is that you guys had this justice package. Mm-hmm. And I said in my intro that it was hastily done, because it was hastily done. It was done in the wake of George Floyd in June. Mm-hmm. And this is the first week of September, okay? Mm-hmm. But you guys got it done. You did it, right? But I don't think a lot of people knew about the justice package and everything that you guys were trying to do. And so I always tell people it's a give and take. We all have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to make sure that the information is available to you and that they are making it easy for you to access the information, as well as putting the information on their website, putting it on their social media, all of that stuff. But you have a responsibility to go and look for it. It's not going to show up on your front door. It's just, it doesn't work that way. If you want to be engaged, you have to be engaged all the way. You have to be engaged in more than what's going on at City Hall, more than what's going on, at Jackie Lacey's office. You have to be engaged at every level of government, because every level of government has something to do with criminal justice reform in the state of California. So your city government, your county government, as well as the state government. So, I would encourage you to make sure that you take some time to do that, especially as we head into November, because I think that that's going to be really critical for folks.
I just want to say something as you are animated regarding that, people getting involved. Understand, I want to thank the 200 people that called my office on that night.
Hold on.
Okay.
Did you endorse Jackie Lacey?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. We're going to have to talk about that, because I got people on my timeline talking about, are you willing to take that endorsement back?
I'm willing to look at that endorsement.
Can we get that endorsement walked back? Now, I think that you could help a lot of people understand where your heart is, mm-hmm. and that you in this fight by walking back that endorsement of Miss Jackie Lacey. You need to. I've been sitting here drinking out of my Jackie Lacey Must Go cup, and I just assumed, Mike, that you had supported George Gascon. I don't know.
I've met George Gascon one time. We have never spoken.
I'm gonna make sure y'all speak.
Okay.
But in the meantime, you and we gotta walk that endorsement back of Jackie Lacey.
I want to have a conversation with Mr. Gascon. I only met him one time in passing.
Okay, well, I'll make the connection for
understand.
You.
Well,
but I'm more concerned about you walking back Jackie Lacey's.
I know you are.
I'm so sorry I had to interrupt you, but I just saw that on my timeline, and I was just like, huh? I really thought that you were not in the Jackie. So you have got to walk that back. I hate to put you on the spot like that. No, you're not putting me on the spot. But your community clearly does not want Jackie Lacey in office again. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that George is going to be perfect, right? Because my feelings on this as a prosecutor, and I'm not against prosecutors. Just be clear on that, because again, I'm trying to get Ed Buck prosecuted. I am against unfair prosecution. Sure. I am against racist prosecution. Okay, but there are bad people, right? So I'm concerned about George Gascon too for some reasons, but I'm sticking with him because I believe I'm one of those people where I vote November, but I don't walk away for 4 years. I stay engaged with that person while they're in office and keep them on track, right? Make them remember what they promised on that campaign trail.
And let me tell you, you have been dead on spot in terms of not only speaking truth to power, but also pulling people's coattails when they're wrong and they should be doing something else. And so I've always admired you in terms of that and being a voice for our community. I'm not just saying that. I know that. That's who you are. You speak truth to power and you take on tough issues. And I respect that, even pulling my coattail in the whole 9 yards. And let me simply say this is where I was leading at. The 200 people that called my office on that night, I respect them, but I don't want them just not call my office just because of this. I want them to continue to call my office.
That's right.
So that and get those individuals involved. But I also want you to know the facts. I want people to at least know the facts before they get out there and say something that is incorrect. And my thing is making sure that people know the facts, making sure if there's someone to be blamed, then you blame that person, but you have done it justifiably based on the facts, not because someone told you of whatever the situation may be. And so when you talk about getting involved, I have been involved in my community long before I was even running for public office.
You have. I can attest to that.
I'm not going to abandon my community and the community that I represent for anyone. I'm going to stay focused on the work. Because if you look at my legislative record, when you look at how much money I brought to my district, $44.1 million, when you look at $3 million going to Compton Creek so we can revitalize Compton Creek so they can increase the home values of people in Compton and allow people to boat from the LA River all the way down. That's work I've been doing. $15 million into sickle cell disease because it affects African Americans, right? Not to mention all the work that the Legislative Black Caucus has done. You know, it's work that I'm proud of. Let me say this. We are not perfect people. We are not perfect people. And it's not about me. And understand it's not about anyone with titles, but it's about what you can do with the title and the position to help people. And my job is try to make people's lives better and empower the people. That's why I put myself at risk going out in the community and potentially contracting COVID-19 because I care. I'm the only member in the state legislature spend the night with homeless people. I have been doing that since 2015. Could not do it this year because of COVID. Now, should a legislator do something like that? I care about my homeless brothers and sisters, so I'm going to be out there with them to make sure they get resources they need and wraparound services, especially when it comes down to housing. We may disagree. We don't have to be disagreeable in that disagreement, but I'm simply challenging people to don't stop here. And when November 3rd comes, there's going to be a November 4th. Don't stop getting involved because you think that the deal is made because hopefully we'll get a new president in office. No, continue to stay involved. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see.
I'm with you on that. We running out of time and you preaching, but I'm all good. So I'm going to counter that with... when you retracting your Jackie Lacey endorsement. That's all people care about is when you retracting that endorsement.
I want to use you, and I want to use your relationship with Mr. Gascon so we can sit down and meet.
Okay. So, and then after you meet with George Gascon,
then we'll have a
okay. I will be reporting back to y'all on whether or not he retracts Jackie Lacey, his endorsement of Jackie Lacey, and you know I will. Anyway.
Y'all know she will.
It has been a very interesting hour. I appreciate you for coming down.
Wait a minute. That seemed like only 30 minutes.
I know.
I had so much more to talk about.
I appreciate you coming down and having this conversation with me. I hope all of you guys learned something, enjoyed the conversation. So thank you, Mike, for coming in.
Thank you.
As always,
so much,
I want to thank Poetess and Morris Media Studios for hosting Convo and our conversations. I love being here with Poetess in Leimert Park, Sister Power, supporting Black businesses. Yes. As always, you can follow me on social media. I'm not hard to find at Jasmyne on Twitter. Hello, Jasmyne on Instagram. Obviously, I'm on Facebook. I was going to tell you before I get out of here that tonight's show was brought to you by the letters J, L, M, and G, as in Jackie Lacey must go. And when we have 60 days till Election Day. I'm going to be on the case of every proposition, every candidate, but that's a race I really care about. I even have my Jackie Lacey Must Go mug. I have my Jackie Lacey Must Go sign up at my window at my house as well. I am serious about that woman getting out of office. So you know I'm going to stay on Mike's ass about retracting that endorsement. You guys have a great and safe Labor Day weekend, and I will see you in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The girls in the hood are always hard. Ever since 16, I've been having a job, knowing nothing in life, but I gotta get rich. You could check the throwback pics, I've been there.
West Side